Hi guys! It's your favorite world-famous YouTuber, DougTheDog6, who has been on this platform for 7 whole years, as long as we don't count the time that I refuse to count. Within that time, you can divide my progression and evolution into different eras to sort of categorize my style of content at each time. But no matter how you carve it up, you'll always find one constant, one mainstay on my channel that I've repeatedly gone back to whenever I've run out of Wait, no, I had it right. Whenever I've run out of ideas. I am, of course, talking about Minecraft, or more specifically, Grand Theft Auto. Yeah, whether it was role-playing with a bunch of friends, trying to beat San Andreas cooperatively, or just talking about the franchise until there's literally nothing left to talk about, this has always just been the well that I've gone to, hasn't it? However, for as much of my time as I've given to this series, there's still a fairly popular entry that I've never really given a chance for one reason or another. But I'm proud to report that that has finally changed, because today is finally the day that I talk about the one and only GTA game where everybody, and I mean everybody, was kung fu fighting. Lads, it's finally time to talk about Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars. Wait, what do you mean this isn't Grand Theft Auto? Alright, so it seems I've made a minor mistake here, but it's no matter. Whether this is a GTA game or not, it's still a damn good game, and I for one can't wait to talk about Saints Row, Chinatown... What? Not that either, huh? Alright then, Driver, For real? What about Crackdown? Watch Dogs? True Crime? Oh wow, that was actually a hotter guess than I thought. Okay, so long story short, a few months ago, I went ahead and bought True Crime Chinatown Wars, also known as Sleeping Dogs by the Marks, on Steam and began playing through it. And when I tell you that I was addicted to this game, you could dangle a dirty heroin needle in front of me and I'd smack it right out of the way so I could see the screen. And would probably be out of it for the next few hours upon touching said needle, but then I'd be right back up to resume my playthrough because holy fuck, I cannot tell you the last time that I've actually had this much fun playing a video game. However, as much fun as this title was to sit down and play, I don't feel like this game is really talked about all that much in the modern day, which is such a shame because it was clearly put together so incredibly well overall, and I genuinely think it can hold up in the modern landscape of video games. So that's the main reason why I'm here today, to give Sleeping Dogs the recognition it deserves, as well as to enlighten any of you who have never heard of it before or have never given it the chance it's worthy of. Whether we're talking about its badass tearjerker of a story, its fluid and addicting gameplay, or its stunning setting, there's plenty of reasons to consider Sleeping Dogs a masterclass of the open world genre, and it's just an insanely fun video game in general. And over the next however many minutes this video ends up being, I'm gonna tell you why. After starting this game, you're dropped into the shoes of Wei Shen shortly after his return to Hong Kong, but also shortly before China's return to Hong Kong. At the beginning of his story, Wei takes part in a drug deal that gets busted by the local authorities, and following a brief foot chase that introduces the player to the game's various parkour mechanics, he gets arrested and is placed in a holding cell with an old childhood friend, Jackie Ma, otherwise known as this universe's equivalent of Roman Bellic from GTA 4.
Let's go bowling.
The two catch up for a bit and talk about some of the people that Wei knew when he was younger who have gone on to climb the corporate ladders of 2 rival Triad factions, one of which Jackie is essentially a foot soldier for. Following the two's interaction, Wei is brought into an interrogation room where it's revealed to us that we're not just playing as an ordinary criminal, but rather as an undercover cop who's been tasked with infiltrating the Triads, and by making contact with Jackie, he's achieved the first step of many in taking them down from the inside. There's a bit of tension in the room during this cutscene, particularly between our 2 higher-ups, Thomas Pendrew and Raymond Mack, who have differing opinions on using Wei for this job, but nonetheless, our protagonist is cut loose after this exchange and meets again with Jackie to be introduced to Winston Chu, a Red Bull in the Sun On Yee Triad. On the way, Jackie flirts with and strikes out against this random girl, prompting this bald fuck to wreck his shit. Suddenly, everybody starts kung fu fighting, leading us into our first combat tutorial, which might as well be called a Spam X simulator. I'm talking shit here, but these basic combos are honestly so fun to dish out, especially when your enemy just ragdolls after a stiff-ass roundhouse. Once these dudes are dealt with, we go on to meet Winston, and Jackie tells him about Wei taking all those guys out to earn us some favor with him. Shortly after this meeting, we have an encounter with the main antagonist of the story's first arc, Dog Eyes, a rivaling Red Bull who got Wei's sister hooked on drugs back in the day, which led to her eventual death. Needless to say, Wei has a vested interest here, which Raymond was worried about. Anyway, during this cutscene, Dog Eyes threatens to take over the night market's protection racket, leading to Winston sending Wei and Jackie to reinforce his influence over there by any means necessary. With our territory secure, we can finally engage in free roam for the first time, or resume through the story where we'll continue working as Winston's soldier for the foreseeable future. If we choose the latter, we'll start to earn face as we build Wei's reputation on the streets of Hong Kong, making him known to the ordinary people who roam them and feared by those who try to control them. Along the way, we also meet various girls for whom we can complete missions to unlock upgrades, which we'll come back to later, as well as this HKPD officer Jane Tang, who we begin assisting in her efforts to make the streets safer. This introduces numerous chains of missions that are more loosely tied to the main story, but I wouldn't exactly call them side missions. I guess you could consider these missions the B-plot, but while that may make them sound inconsequential, they create this interesting opportunity to show us that in spite of how involved Wei gets with the Triads, he's still aware of the importance of protecting Hong Kong's innocent citizens from its dangerous criminals. While balancing the life of a Triad with the life of a cop, Wei occasionally reports to Raymond to update him on what's going on, which is pretty much the only time that we see our main character lose control, as he has to process what he's recently witnessed while trying not to seem like he's losing it, which he never does a great job at, as he typically blows up on Raymond due to all the stress. But nonetheless, Raymond reluctantly allows Wei to keep working on the case, even though he can sense that our main character is getting too attached. Around the time of this first meeting with Raymond, we also have our first meeting with Pendrew out on the streets when we recover a gun belonging to one of Dog Eye's boys. After we report this to Raymond, Pendrew meets with us instead and guides us through a fake shootout to artificially frame the gangster for murder. It's at this point that some seeds of doubt towards Pendrew are planted within Wei, as he knows this isn't the right way of pursuing justice, what with nobody kung fu fighting and all. But Pendrew insists that he's doing what must be done for the greater good. Moving on from police business now, while we continue to do jobs for Winston, Wei starts to earn favor within the Sun On Yee as he becomes respected and trusted by his soldiers. Before too long, he's even summoned by Uncle Po, who...
And you, young man, must be Wei.
Holy shit, that's Mr. Ping from Kung Fu Panda! Everybody really was Kung Fu fighting! Anyway, Uncle Po is the chairman of the Sun On Yee, which I guess is like the Triad equivalent to a Mafia's Don. So when Wei and Winston are summoned to meet with him in the midst of our civil war with Dog Eyes, it's a tense situation since he could find our party to be the guilty one and might decide to take action. Luckily for us, cooler heads prevail and we end up doing some work for Uncle Po directly. At this point, things are looking up for our branch of the Sun On Yee, because not only is Wei on his way to becoming a made man, but Winston is about to get married. Following a mission where we take his fiancée Peggy out for some last minute wedding planning, which, let's be real, is more of a last minute, let's try to get you attached to this character you've never met before so you'll be sad when she gets killed mission, which granted worked on me. Anyway, following that mission, we arrive at Winston's wedding for what's sure to be such a great feel-good moment now that we're about halfway through the game. Oh wow, even Uncle Po's here. Gee willikers, what on earth could possibly go wrong?
Shit!
Oh, god damn it. Well, at least Peggy, oh, nope, she's, yeah. Hey, Uncle Po, at least he's still... Oh, come on, not him too! God, them Sun On Yee boys just can't catch a break, can they? Well, on the plus side, Uncle Po does survive this encounter, but on the downside, dude is bedridden, which means the Sun On Yee is gonna need a new interim chairman. This leads into the second arc of the story, where our path begins to cross with that of our new main antagonist, Big Smile Lee. Oh, and if you're wondering what happened to our old main antagonist, Dog Eyes, well...
Oh, God! I'm sorry, please! Stop!
He got what he fucking deserved. Anyway, with Dog Eyes out of the picture and Winston dead, Uncle Po promotes Wei to a Red Pole, and per the nomination of Broken Nose Jang, another Red Pole and ally to Wei, Uncle Po chooses Jabba the Hutt to take over as chairman. A necessary move given our incoming war with the 18K Triads. It's worth mentioning too that Wei is given permission to have anyone from his crew be officially initiated into the Sun On Yee as well, and without a second thought, he picks his best friend Jackie, and the two share a heartwarming moment when Jackie elates at the news of Wei's promotion. The two then go on to perform a job to merit their initiation, and it's during this mission that Jackie reveals he went on a date with that girl from earlier. It's also during this mission that Jackie takes his first life, and judging by how he handles the aftermath, it starts to become apparent that maybe this isn't the life he should be living. Isn't it just convenient then that just after this mission, Raymond tells us that they're going to be arresting Jackie? Wei does his best to convince Raymond to change Pendrew's mind, but despite his efforts, Jackie's taken in the very next mission. Don't worry though, because after a bit of politicking, Wei manages to arrange for Jackie's release, just in time to attend Uncle Po's funeral. Alright, I forgot to mention that. Let's just backtrack a little bit. So remember how Jabba the Hutt became interim chairman? Well, long story short, he's enjoying the position a little too much, and Big Smile Lee has plans on taking his place by force. So Jang needs our help pushing some dominoes to get the big boy to back down, and we do this just in time for Uncle Po to succumb to his injuries. This brings us to the funeral, which obviously gets shot up by the 18K. What's less obvious though is that Pendrew, along with a few other cops, are also here to make an arrest of one of the Sun On Yee's biggest financial financial backers, and that's all they're here to do. With their ally taken in, Pendrew leaves the two warring triads to their own devices, letting whatever happens, happen. I should mention as well that the last time that Wei and Pendrew met, our superior officer wanted to pull us out of the operation, seeing as how we've done more than enough damage to the triads. But just as Raymond worried would happen, Wei had grown too attached and effectively abandoned his post as a police officer to protect the men he'd become so close to, knowing that if he were to leave the gang now, then Big Smile Lee would certainly take over and would bring disaster upon Wei's soldiers. This all leads to Pendrew's betrayal of Wei, leaving us for dead at the hands of the 18K. Or at least, we would be dead if we weren't the main character with a goddamn grenade launcher. Following this explosive battle, pun intended, we have an even more explosive confrontation, pun less intended, with Big Smile Lee and Broken Nose Jang, where it's decided that the Sun On Yee will elect a new chairman to lead them to victory against the 18K. Since Lee would rather be given the chairmanship outright, he's not very pleased by this decision and tries to have Wei and his crew eliminated ahead of the election. While his men are unsuccessful in their initial attempt, they manage to isolate Jackie and use his life as leverage to eliminate Wei when they lure us into a back alley ambush. Once again, we main character our way through everybody until we get a lead on Jackie's location and proceed to rescue him. In this encounter with him, Jackie sounds emotionally broken and utterly defeated, like he wants nothing more than to be done with all the bullshit that being a triad has gotten him into. Couple that with everything else he's been saying up to this point, and it really sounds like Jackie would much rather settle down with his girl and live an honest life with her than to keep endangering himself for some stupid dream he had as a kid. Yeah, I think we all know where this is going. Jesus Christ, the triads are fucking brutal. Oh, and yeah, don't worry about processing this because a few hours later, Wei wakes up and gets his knee fucking power drilled. Oh, and it turns out that Pendrew blew his cover, so, you know, that's cool. Now it's up to our battered and beaten protagonist to somehow break free and escape this tower full of triads, which, did I mention he's the main character? Alright, so now Big Smile Lee and the 18K, who I guess he's been working with probably this whole time, know that Wei is a cop. So once we escape our captors, Wei knows he has to put things to an end once and for all. But of course, being outed as a cop isn't his motivation. On his way to Lee's hideout, Wei hears the ghosts of his past being haunted by the voices of Jackie, Winston, Uncle Poe, Raymond, and many others he's either lost or been forced to turn against. It's everything that's happened in this story that has led to this final encounter, and after fighting through everything Lee can possibly throw at him, including a literal shotgun blast to the fucking chest, Wei chases him down and catches a ride on his boat until the two crash into a gas station. It's on this flaming fuel vessel that we have our final battle with him, ultimately finishing Lee off in the most triad way he can. The ol' ice shipper. With Big Smile Lee dealt with once and for all, it's safe to assume that the Sun On Yee will be well off under the leadership of Broken Nose Jang, or Aunt Jang to which she's now referred. With that business settled, Wei debriefs with Raymond and is informed that Pendrew has used them for what they were worth and is now receiving a promotion. Well, at least he would be if Jang didn't somehow acquire footage of Pendrew euthanizing Uncle Poe and send it to us, which Wei promptly submits to put Pendrew in prison where he'll likely be murdered by the criminals he circumvented the justice system to lock up. With that loose end tied, Wei has a brief meeting with Inspector Tang where he thanks her for giving him real police work to help him feel like he's still doing some good while working for Pendrew. The two then have a brief dialogue that hints at the story's ambiguous aftermath, leaving it up in the air on whether Wei chooses to return to his life as a cop or his life as a triad. We then get one last exposition from Aunt Jang, who reveals that the Sun On Yee knows of Wei's identity, but given his actions while he worked for the triads, she trusts that he won't be an issue going forward and effectively pardons him. With that, the credits roll, signaling the end of the story of Wei Shen, and what a beautifully tragic story it was. I remember trying to play through Sleeping Dogs 2 other times in my life. The first time was back when it released on the Xbox 360, and I remember playing through a good chunk of the story, but once guns started popping up in missions, I quickly lost interest and quit sometime after Winston's wedding. Sorry, but I was only interested in kung fu fighting, not kung fu shooting. Still though, the thought of returning to this game and finishing what I started lurked in the back of my mind. So when the definitive edition, no, not that one, dropped on the Xbox One, I picked it up and tried my hand at it again. I got farther this time, but for one reason or another, I just got burnt out on it maybe a few missions after where I quit the first time. I think this time around, I was just too overwhelmed by how much content existed within the world that I just got bored before I could finish the story. But again, I always knew that I needed to come back and see its conclusion one day. So for the past 10 or so years, I managed to avoid spoilers on this game as best as I could, which was honestly pretty easy because, like I said before, nobody really talks about it. And I'm very glad that I did this, because this was an incredibly emotional but action-packed journey to experience. The beginning of the story feels so well paced as Wei finds his footing upon returning to his hometown to join his local gang scene. From there, he earns the favor of his comrades and becomes the right-hand man to his Red Bull, earning Winston's trust in his planning as well as his ability to get things done. And while Winston can come off as an asshole early on, he's quickly revealed to be a caring leader for whom you feel awful when he dies. The writers could have done better on giving his fiancée Peggy as well as Uncle Poe more screen time ahead of the wedding to give us more of a reason to care about them, but Winston's connection to them helps me at least to bridge that emotional gap. The pacing of the second act certainly seems to ramp up given how quickly numerous major events seem to unfold, like Jabba the Hutt becoming chairman and then stepping down from that position within just a few missions, or Jackie going to jail and getting released only a couple missions later. But in my playthrough, I was knocking out so much side content during this arc that the time in between these missions felt pretty padded out, so I personally don't mind the speedy pace all that much. The only time I really did mind it though was in the post-mission cutscenes of the game's finale where the loose end of Pendrew gets tied up because his defeat just comes out of nowhere and it doesn't feel earned. Whereas in other stories like Vice City, where Tommy Vercetti spends the entire game becoming a force that Sonny Frelli can't overcome and ultimately rubs him out, or in GTA 4 where Niko Bellic runs into Dmitry Raskolov's men numerous times throughout the story, gets the better of them each time, and then finishes Dmitry off, or if we were to turn away from Grand Theft Auto and talk about, say, Bully, where Jimmy Hopkins builds an army to overthrow and defeat Gary Smith. Yes, I know I'm only referencing Rockstar titles here, but it's not like there's much else for me to compare to, let's be real. Pendrew feels completely untouchable even past our last controller input in the game, only to be brought down by one tiny little mistake he happened to make that also somehow happened to be picked up by someone who happened to want to see him go down. This honestly feels like way too big of a stretch for me and is really my only gripe with the story. Other than that, this story is damn near perfect in every other way. It's just the very ending that I take issue with. But as great of a story as it was, we all know that a game is only as good as its gameplay. So let's now go over how Sleeping Dogs knocked this aspect out of the goddamn park. The gameplay of Sleeping Dogs can be broken down into about 4 different categories: melee, shooting, driving, and parkour. So let's go over each of these areas one at a time and talk about them individually. And while we're at it, we'll also talk about how their elements cross over with each other to strengthen each aspect. First off, let's talk about the insanely addictive melee combat in this game. The best way I could describe it is if you took the fast-paced striking system from the Batman Arkham games and mixed it with the grappling system and environmental utilization of Bully. Very commonly in this game, you'll find yourself battling 10-on-1 odds in fistfights that would result in the common man getting rocked. But since our boy Wei Shen is incredibly adept in kung fu fighting, battling these odds almost never feels like you're at a disadvantage. Rather, having more enemies to fight always makes your battles so much more entertaining as it provides you with more opportunity to just brutalize anybody who stands in your path. However, don't get it completely twisted. Just because the gameplay is fun and satisfying in this regard doesn't mean you're invincible, and one wrong move can spell your end if you're not careful. But as long as you play skillfully enough, the occasional death will remain a rarity. As easy as it is for me to tell you that the melee combat is just fun though, let me explain exactly how the system works. So like I said earlier, it's mostly a spam X simulator where the more you spam X, the more strikes you do in a combo. However, as you level up certain aspects of your character, you'll unlock more alternate combos that you can do to deal more damage where you might have to hold X instead of simply pressing it at a particular moment. In all reality, these alternate combos aren't all that necessary to take down opponents, but they spice things up just enough and can look so devastating that switching up the attacks that you use during your fights often proves to be the funner option. But in addition to these striking combos, we also have several grapples that you can initiate by pressing B to grab an opponent, and from there you can input several X button combinations to jostle some joints and liquefy some ligaments. Not just that though, if you have an enemy in a grapple, you can drag them over to pretty much any part of your environment to either deal additional damage or just kill them outright. Meanwhile, if your opponent tries to go on the offensive by attacking you, you can simply press the Y button to counter them and show them exactly why that was a mistake. Lastly, by holding A, you can run at your target and either take them down with a badass spinning heel kick, or you can tackle him to the ground and punish him with a stiff-ass punch to the face. That's the basics of how melee combat works here, but as I mentioned, you can go on to unlock upgrades that make Wei even more unstoppable by either doing missions for the Triads to increase his Triad level, or by collecting some statues around the map for his sensei who will promptly allow us to beat the shit out of his students. Oh, and if Wei wasn't dangerous enough, he can also acquire melee weapons that break pretty quickly, but can do some fucking damage before they do. Speaking of weapons, let's step away from all the kung fu fighting and talk about how the shooting works in this game next. Unlike how in Grand Theft Auto, where picking up a gun pretty much means that you'll have it forever, and if you want to use a different weapon, you can seamlessly switch to it, Sleeping Dogs has an interesting mechanic that only allows you to carry one weapon at a time, and if you run out of ammo for it, it's gone. Couple this with the scarcity of guns in the open world and their uncommonness throughout most of the story mode, and the use of guns becomes a rare privilege that ensures that the player will need to prioritize honing their melee skills. That being said, there's actually a fair variety of guns available to be used throughout the game, and due to their aforementioned rarity, their usability becomes fairly situational and forces you to learn how to become decently skilled with each one. For example, while assault rifles start to become common in the much later missions, there's not always just one lying around, so you'll need to be good with using lower tier weapons like pistols and SMGs if you're gonna stand a chance against opponents with heavy numbers and firepower. As far as the guns themselves are concerned, there's 4 weapon classes in the game: pistols, SMGs, shotguns, and assault rifles. And many of these guns may be equipped with attachments as well. This detail doesn't matter too much, but you'll see in a minute why I bring it up. Pistols are as basic as it gets, with only 2 real variants, being a 9mm or a Desert Eagle. But apart from their deferring damage, which I don't really think I need to explain, they mostly work the same. Both guns are semi-automatic and have a relatively small crosshair that widens when you move. They're accurate enough and can be relied on to deliver headshots, but they're not my personal weapon of choice. SMGs, meanwhile, are much more inaccurate and have much larger crosshairs, but given their high rates of fire and large mag sizes, a good old spray and pray will usually ensure a kill from short to medium distances. As for shotguns, well, they're shotguns. They're absolute killing machines at short distances, but if your victim is able to make some ground on you, there's not a whole lot you can do besides hope that one of the bullets in your spread happens to catch him. Lastly, we have the favorite class of the white, socially awkward American like myself, the assault rifles, which are undoubtedly the deadliest weapons in the game due to their high accuracy that will let you cut down anyone at just about any distance, as well as their high rate of fire that make it so if you miss 1 or 2 shots, you've already fired enough bullets that will hit and ensure your kill. But as if these things weren't scary enough yet, on rare occasions, you can acquire an AR that has a grenade launcher attachment. Need I say more? In addition to the deadliness of each gun, there's also a few gimmicks and mechanics in Sleeping Dogs that make gunfights unique to this game. The main one that I'm sure you've already noticed is Way's ability to slow down time when he's shooting to increase his accuracy. Wait a minute, this sounds familiar. Could it be? Red Dead Redemption Chinatown Wars? Yes, much like the cowboys who came before him, Way can focus and hone in on enemies for a few seconds to more optimally kill them by simply vaulting over obstacles, which, if abused correctly, can make gunfights a breeze, seeing as how each kill resets the time before the world speeds up again. Not only can Way slow down time on foot, however, as this also happens when you aim at an enemy from inside a vehicle, making it much easier to shoot while driving. Speaking of which, another really fun gimmick this game has is when you shoot at someone's tires, their car pulls a Doc Hudson and completely wrecks, killing everyone inside it, just like Doc Hudson. But the same can happen to you if you're not careful though, which makes it a much riskier task to try to evade gunfire by car and forces you to adapt your exit strategy appropriately. The only negative I can really associate with this game's gunplay though, revolves around the issue of switching targets. In the event that you need to change who you're shooting at, you can easily do so by flicking the left stick in the direction of the next enemy. However, in order to aim away from an enemy's torso to perhaps hit a headshot, you also need to use the left stick to move your crosshair. I'm sure you can see where this is going. This creates a pretty annoying system where you just keep on switching back and forth between enemies, when you may be limited on time to kill if you're trying to keep slow-mo activated. But other than this minor gripe, shooting people in this game is still almost as satisfying as beating the shit out of them. Anyway, back to the topic of driving, let's go over this aspect of the game next. This is honestly the only part of the game so far that I feel comes up a bit short, and it's because when I play this type of video game from this era, I expect its driving to have a particular feel to it. By that, I mean I'm expecting something akin to either GTA 4 or 5, which I know is a very unfair ask, but again, that series is really all I have to compare this to, and unfortunately, Sleeping Dogs provides a much different, more arcadey feel in this regard. I don't really know how else to describe it, but the driving in this game just feels very strange and alien to me, or at least did it first, because after a while, I more or less got used to it and took it for what it was. And while I don't exactly prefer its driving physics over those of the games I just compared it to, I can at least accept its charm in order to enjoy the rest of the game. But while I may not be the biggest fan of the game's driving on a fundamental level, I do love some of the things that you're able to do while driving. One of these is the ability to ram vehicles by pressing X while pushing the left stick in the direction in which you wish to ram. This allows you to decommission pursuing cars when you don't have a gun to shoot at them with. And this can be especially helpful when fleeing the police, since it's nearly impossible to outrun them outright. Another awesome feature is the ability to jump out of a moving car to hijack somebody else on the road. You're required to use this ability occasionally throughout the story, but it's so fun to be able to just take over somebody else's car while speeding down the freeway in free roam as well. There's a couple couple of other cool features regarding cars, where you can nab a tire iron out of the trunk of most normal cars to beat the shit out of a few innocent people, or you can swipe a gun out of the trunk of a cop car and go on a shooting spree. But not only can you just take items from trunks, because you can also shove people into them if you just feel like being an asshole. Yeah, technically these things don't exactly have anything to do with driving, but since they require a car to do them, I figured this would be the best place to include these features. Anyway, the last major element of Sleeping Dogs gameplay we'll go over is parkour. This is another incredibly fun feature that scratches that itch you may have if you enjoy Assassin's Creed, even if it isn't nearly as fleshed out as that series version of this mechanic. This game's parkour is pretty simple overall. Just hold A to run forward, and if there's an obstacle in your way, let go and tap A again to quickly vault over it. If you fail this QTE, Way will just bump into the obstacle and slow down slightly, but he'll quickly pick the pace back up to continue forward at full speed. If you need to jump over a gap, it's the same deal. Tap A to clear it. Or if you're jumping down from a height, you can press A just before you land to roll through. Otherwise, you'll stumble a bit. Learning how to parkour efficiently is necessary to complete plenty of foot chase missions throughout the story. But if you find yourself going on a collectible hunt in free roam, you'll at least need to know the basics to reach a lot of these things. Luckily though, parkouring is easy to figure out and just feels so cool and fun to do. Before we move on from the gameplay section of this video, there's a few other miscellaneous features that I want to throw in here that don't quite fit in with the other chapters, but I'd be doing this game a massive disservice if I didn't at least mention them. First off, as I was just referring to, there's plenty of collectibles littered throughout Hong Kong to go on a scavenger hunt for. These collectibles include lockboxes, which are typically guarded by street thugs and contain valuable Hong Kong monies as well as a gun sometimes. There's also a total of 50 health shrines scattered around the map, and for every 5 you visit, you gain a 10% health boost, eventually equaling out to a 100% boost if you visit them all. Next, there's these aforementioned jade statues that you can return to Wei Sensei in order to learn new combos, similar to how you can bring transistors to the old hobo from Bully in exchange for learning some Viet Cong Fu fighting. Lastly, there's sets of spy cameras in each town that usually require you to beat the shit out of a number of thugs before you can hack them, after which you can go back to your apartment and send the HKPD out to bust a drug dealer operating near the camera. When you first start the game, you won't be hard pressed to find any pieces of these collectible sets, as you'll run into plenty of them while playing through missions. And even in free roam, it's not uncommon to just stumble upon them while traveling. But in case you need any help tracking these bad boys down, there's plenty of bad girls out there that can give you a hand at this job. Throughout the story, you'll unlock a few side missions that you can do for Wei's side pieces, and after you complete them, you'll earn the ability to see all collectibles of a certain type on the map, making completionism nothing more than a simple side objective rather than a tedious task of having to repeatedly pause the game to look at an online guide should you decide to pursue 100%. As great as that is though, my only issue with giving the player this ability is that it can keep your eyes locked onto the bottom left corner of the screen so you don't miss any collectibles, which in turn keeps you from being able to view this game's stunning sights. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about the settings shortly, so for now, let's finish going over this game's side content. In addition to collectible hunting, you can also partake in various events throughout the world. You can take part in street races around the map, participate in each town's fight clubs, go out to a barge to gamble on mahjong, bet on cockfights, defend stores from troublemakers, apprehend criminals.
Oh, that's too far. He's not even black.
And so much more. Genuinely, there's so much side content to enjoy in this game that my playthrough that would have been maybe 8 or so hours had I only focused on the main story, it ended up stretching to about 22 hours of gameplay by the time I 100%ed it. And what's truly impressive about that is that conquering this challenge almost never felt like a chore. The only time it felt annoying at all was when I had to complete the last couple of random events that I hadn't done yet that required specific conditions to spawn. But other than that, the other 21 or so hours were some of the funnest hours that I've spent playing a video game in years. In part thanks to some of the wacky and Saints Row-ish shenanigans that the game allows you to get up to in addition to everything else I just talked about. Yes, while Sleeping Dogs' story may portray itself as a serious, heartbreaking tale of death and brutality, and while the action the game allows you to enjoy does a great job at complementing that, there's a couple of other optional gameplay inclusions that completely offset this feel, and they absolutely do it for the better. The first of these is the Zodiac Tournament, which completely takes the piss out of old school martial arts movies like Enter the Dragon, and it does it in what feels like the funniest way possible. When you first start this side mission, you literally get a satirical movie opening for a cutscene before we're introduced to our numerous cliche opponents, including some typical karate kids, a treacherous female admirer, and a goddamn UFC cage fighter who is by far the most annoying enemy in this entire fucking game. Straight up, this fight is one of the only parts of this entire game that I genuinely dislike because it just comes down to kicking this fucker in the shin 40 times until it snaps since he blocks nearly every other attack. Anyway, you eventually progress to the final round of the tournament where you have to kill these guys that you're apparently friends with. or else everyone will die. Wei of course wins and decides to kill the tournament master in retaliation, leading to a foot chase throughout the island, complete with the master casting bolts of thunder down upon us to slow us down. Once we corner him, we engage in a final battle where he shows off his mastery of drunken style, his words. But his technique is no match for Wei Shen's main character style, my words. In the end, he tries to bribe us into letting him go, offering us $25 million to become partners. But because Wei Shen only deals in valuable Hong Kong monies, our badass hero tells him no in the most badass way possible, by breaking his fucking neck and then telling him no after he's killed him, like a badass. Yeah, this is a quick little chain of missions that does not take itself seriously whatsoever, but it's also such a fun little breakaway from the more serious main story that any possible hurt it could have had on the game's tone is far outshined. The other fun little extra included in Sleeping Dogs is the DZS-90, aka the deadliest piece of equipment in the entire fucking game. This is a supercar that a Triad scientist has you help build over a series of missions, and after each mission, you unlock a new upgrade for it, including EMPs and dual miniguns with 360-degree aiming. In all the years that I've known about this game, I had never known about either the Zodiac tournament or this absolute killing machine. Granted, they were both DLCs that weren't included in the original base game, but still. So just imagine my shock when I learned of this beast's existence. I cannot describe how fun it is to just dick around Hong Kong and this thing being a literal terrorist. And if you've ever had trouble beating this town's street races, this monster is a free ticket to the finish line. All in all, there are so many aspects of Sleeping Dogs gameplay that make it an absolute blast to sit down and run through. And to be honest, there are far too many positive features to possibly remember them all. But I hope this has been an extensive enough list of its best attributes. But as I mentioned near the start of this video, there were multiple factors that contributed towards my overall enjoyment of this game. And one more that I'd like to speak to you about is its immaculate setting. Now, before I get started here, let me just preface this chapter by saying that I do not believe good graphics make a good game. My opinion has always been that graphics are one of the least important aspects of proper game design, which is why in all of my retrospectives, you'll only ever see me talk about them as well as the title's overall setting after I've gone over its gameplay. Now, with that being said, I do wholeheartedly believe that a setting that supplements an already fun video game can take it from being a great game to an amazing one, and that's exactly what Sleeping Dogs has done here. All throughout this world, there are so many incredible sights to behold as you traverse the streets and alleys of Hong Kong, and they're all so lively as well, seeing as how most of the city is heavily populated by its mass of civilian life. This game wastes no time in showing off this quality of its setting either, as in our very first mission we have to run through several buildings, including a fish market occupied by its workers and a home full of drunk partygoers. After this sort of prologue, we enter the first town that we'll become acquainted with, North Point, which is full of so many beautiful locations we'll get to visit sooner rather than later. My personal favorite area to explore in this town, and honestly in the whole of Hong Kong in general, is the night market, a sort of flea market that exists in the back alleys of the town center. The way each of the vendors' tents glow so brightly against the contrasting darkness of the sky, the mass of shoppers roaming around and actually interacting with each kiosk, the vibrant neon signs and paper lanterns that hang over us to light up the ground, it all comes together to create one of the most alive, welcoming, and visually pleasing places in any of the open world video games I've ever played. This is what Rockstar Games tried to make Vice City's North Point Mall feel like, and what they tried to make GTA 4's Star Junction feel like, and what they tried to make Bully's Traveling Carnival feel like. And yet, despite all of Rockstar's undeniable successes, it's United Front Games' Sleeping Dogs that has the most glazable location for me. Honestly, the temptation of feeling the experience of roaming these back alleys again is one of the biggest reasons why I felt such a need to revisit Sleeping Dogs in the first place. Well, roaming these markets and going on a kung fu fighting rampage through them since cops don't respond here, but I digress. Seriously though, as ghetto-y of an area that the night market may really be, it's just an absolute treat that we're able to walk through an area as gorgeous as this. A few of the other fun areas to visit in North Point are the Golden Koi, Winston's mother's restaurant where you can watch the employees actually work, the Garden Temple, a traditional Chinese martial arts temple where everybody is actually kung fu fighting, and Club Bam Bam, a sleek karaoke bar packed with patrons where you can even play a minigame where Wei sings karaoke. Poorly.
Brother, this guy stinks!
There's also a few other towns on the island that we can explore. Central, the rich business district, Kennedy Town, the place JFK went to live after he faked his death, and Aberdeen, a rather small fishing town. Each of these areas have their own thrilling sights to see, but since this video is already running long and there's still plenty more I want to talk about, we're just gonna have to speedrun a few of these. We've got the Kennedy Town beach, from where you can take in the view of the sparkling South China Sea as it melts into the South China horizon. God, I just love South China. Then there's downtown Central, whose well-lit streets make for a good backdrop as you speed down them, as well as the more clubbish looking karaoke bar simply called K-Bar, where you can watch Wade dance, poorly. And of course, there's the fishing docks of Aberdeen, as well as its suspension bridge you can drive down while viewing the town's awe-inspiring skyline. As impressive as the city's sights are though, it's not just the pleasing visuals that make Sleeping Dogs' setting as immaculate as it is. As I mentioned when I was talking about the night market and a few other locations, there's so many areas in this game that are just crawling with lively NPCs going about their day, some of whom you can even interact with, whether it's by purchasing goods like street foods from vendors,
A man who never eats pork buns is never a whole man.
decorations for Way's various apartments, or services from massage parlors.
You don't mind if I call you Daddy, do you, Daddy?
Or by engaging in random events like helping shopkeepers deal with troublesome customers. Plus, by taking part in the city's numerous side missions I've already somewhat talked about, like its street races, various cop jobs, and numerous drug busts. It all does a great job at showing us that the city truly has a life of its own that we can choose whether or not to participate in. But as lively and welcoming as this world has proven itself to be, and as fun as its gameplay is, and as emotional as its story may make you feel, those of you who have watched my videos talking about Grand Theft Auto games in the past know that there's one more element that can take a great game to the next level if it's executed correctly. I am of course talking about the game's soundtrack. In my past videos discussing Grand Theft Auto games, I've made sure to hammer home how important it was for that franchise's titles to have memorable soundtracks that fit its vibe. This aspect was perfected in Vice City, where we had plenty of songs from what is perhaps music's greatest era that helped immerse the player into the 80s setting that Rockstar wanted to place them within. San Andreas also had memorable radio stations consisting of some of the hardest gangster rap and grungiest rock music to come out of the 90s. Hell, I'd even say that GTA 4's soundtrack has aged like a fine wine with its music that does just as much to encapsulate the 2000s as its keypad phones and internet cafes. Taking things outside of the GTA realm, just taking a look at Red Dead Redemption will show us that even without the in-world technology to listen to a radio, it's still very possible to convey powerful instrumentals to the player without breaking the immersion. And if you're interested in hearing more on this topic specifically, check out this video by one of my viewers, Silly Giggles, where he goes in depth on how Rockstar uses Red Dead songs to psychologically emit emotion out of you. But while Rockstar games have shown us how it's done numerous times from a musical perspective, unfortunately, I feel that United Front games comes up pretty short here. Of course, this part is going to be very subjective, but at least from my perspective, Sleeping Dogs doesn't have that good of a soundtrack, nor does it have very many songs that make me think of this game specifically. I mean, whenever I hear a song like 99 Red Balloons while I'm just going about my day, I instantly get mentally transported to the streets of Vice City. Or if I hear Lady, Hear Me Tonight, well shit, I'm sure those words alone are making you think of GTA 5, aren't they? I will say that there's a song or two in Sleeping Dogs like Yellow Fever that put me in the mood to do some kung fu fighting, but outside of this outlier, I can't think of a single song that I'd really associate with this game specifically, and that's coming from someone who has nearly 30 hours in it on Steam, plus however many hours I put into it on the 360 and Xbox One back in the day. That being said, the game does have some good songs in it like Eminence Front by The Who, but even that song just makes me think of San Andreas. In all realness though, Sleeping Dogs does actually have a few bangers in it that I can thoroughly enjoy whenever I'm driving around, like My Curse by Killswitch Engage, Blackstone Cherry's Change as well as Rain Wizard, and Dragon Attack by Queen. But again, outside of these handful of songs, I feel there's just not a whole lot going for Sleeping Dogs on a musical level. I will say though that it's possible that the soundtrack itself isn't the problem, because one major bug I had with the radio in this game was that whenever I'd leave my car and get back in it again, or if I changed the radio to a different station and changed it back, the song I was just listening to and might have been like 2 minutes into would restart from the very beginning. Now, this is great if there's a good song on it and you just want to listen to it again, but when it gets reset every time you drive up to a collectible, get out to to grab it and get back in to continue driving, but I'm not done yet. Then drive to another collectible, get out to grab it and get back in again, then rinse and goddamn repeat. That banger you were just vibing to becomes a chore to sit through that forces you to change the station just so you can hear anything else. But if that wasn't enough of an issue, strangely enough, I'll also occasionally have this problem where I'm listening to a great song but need to leave the car or switch cars for one reason or another. When I get back to that same station, a completely different song will be playing regardless of how far I was into the last one. I'm not exactly sure what causes this bug. Maybe it's just an issue with the PC version, or maybe it exists on all platforms. Hell, maybe I'm the only person in the world who's experienced this bug, I don't know. But what I do know is that this bug undeniably worsened my chance to enjoy Sleeping Dogs' soundtrack in all of its glory, which has unfortunately brought down my enjoyment of the game overall. Though while I may not care for most of the game's radio stations, I will say that its actual background music that plays during many of the missions is phenomenal and superbly sets the appropriate tone. Whenever you're playing a mission where the stakes are high, you'll hear a fast-paced song that will fuel you to do whatever it takes to complete it. If an emotional moment is taking place during a cutscene, the music will slow down and aid you in feeling sad for the characters involved. Or on missions where you have to stealthily avoid being discovered, you might hear a more tense song that helps you feel the same nerves as Wei. And the whole time you're listening to these songs, you'll truly feel like you're hearing them from the streets of China, as they all have that particular East Asian sound to them. It really is a spectacular experience. But apart from my appreciation for the game's score, my lack of care for its soundtrack isn't the worst thing in the world by any means. And while the rest of the game is still great for the most part, it's just a shame that its radio couldn't propel it to an even higher level of greatness. Although, I do want to circle back to the middle of that last sentence. The rest of the game is still great, for the most part. For the past half hour or so, I've more or less gone on about how phenomenal of a game Sleeping Dogs is, and how well it holds up even over a decade after its original release. But while it's amazingly fun to play for a variety of reasons, there's also a few reasons why it's not exactly the perfect title I've made it out to be. So in this next section of the video, let's recap a few of the bugs I've mentioned already, as well as a few other major game-breaking glitches and other flaws that hold it back from being a masterpiece. So far in this video, I've talked about many of the great qualities within Sleeping Dogs that all come together to create one of the funnest modern games I've ever played. But as great of a game as it is on the surface, there are unfortunately a few bugs and drawbacks that have at least somewhat stunted my opinion of it. Luckily, there aren't too many negatives to cover, so this won't be a super long chapter by any means, but I feel these are strong enough issues that I had that I can't just ignore them here. Now, I'll be real, the first couple of problems I'm going to talk about are a bit on the nitpickier side, but you know what? My video, my rules. Got a problem? Bitch about it in the comments. Anyway, one issue I have with this game is similar to the one I had with Vice City, and that's the feel of the occasional lack of direction when it comes to progression. In my Vice City video, I talked briefly about a portion of the game near the end of the story where you have to complete a bunch of assets to unlock the final set of missions. But my issue was that the game did a very poor job of communicating this to the player. Sleeping Dogs has a similar problem on occasion with its story, as there were multiple points when I wouldn't have any missions available, apparently except for the objective to simply go to bed. Only then would I finally unlock my next mission. If the game had ever properly told me that I needed to go to bed to advance the story, this wouldn't be something I'd feel I have to talk about right now. But when I hit this roadblock for the first time, I was genuinely lost. There were no mission markers on my minimap. I called all of my contacts to see if they might unlock missions for me GTA 4 style. I drove around looking for missions, but I couldn't find anything. It wasn't until I checked my map and hovered over my safe house that I finally saw that objective over half an hour after completing my previous one, which to me is just shitty game design no matter how you chalk it up. That being said though, the struggle of searching for my next story mission actually did help me find out about the various girlfriend missions you can complete to unlock collectible markers on the map, which is convenient because Wei's girlfriends are the next thing I want to talk about here. Throughout this story, Wei meets a handful of girls with whom you can go out on a singular date and then never talk to again. This shit honestly annoys the hell out of me because these writers created so many great love interests for Wei who I would have enjoyed getting to take out and do side activities with, just like how you could do with CJ's girlfriends in San Andreas. But instead, we just get these couple of side missions with them to unlock those collectible markers and then nothing else. Oh well though, maybe it's for the best. Wei is canonically a wife-beater wearing woman-beater after all. But speaking of those collectible markers, as much as I love them for how much easier they make it to find all the collectibles if you really want to get them all, now that we've gone over this game's beautiful setting, I can't help but reiterate just how distracting these markers can be, as they have a tendency to take your eyes away from the gorgeous streets of Hong Kong and keep your focus on the little mini-map in the corner. But hey, I guess if you collect everything, then you won't have to worry about being distracted anymore. Although, again, don't forget that if you do go on that extensive scavenger hunt, there's a good chance you'll be hearing the same guitar riff over and over again, since that radio likes to reset itself whenever you re-enter the car. Okay, so I'll admit again that a couple of these issues I've talked about so far were a bit nitpicky, and the other ones are definitely more of mild annoyances than anything at the end of the day. But now, I'm going to talk to you about a couple of actual game-breaking glitches I dealt with while playing through the story that genuinely did hamper my experience quite a bit. The first glitch I'll talk about is this one that can occur when you're vaulting over an object while aiming. Throughout this video, I'm sure you've already seen multiple times how this mechanic is intended to look. I think it's pretty clear this isn't the intention. Honestly, I have no idea what the hell causes this, but what I do know is that once it starts happening, it tends to keep happening. So if this occurs in the middle of a mission, you're going to be forced to adapt by avoiding the use of this mechanic. I will say at least that it's not so bad if you're in a building, since the walls will catch you and prevent you from going too far, but if you have the balls to try this outside, you're going to experience the Sleeping Dogs equivalent to the swing set glitch from GTA 4. Staying on topic with game-breaking bullshit, here's another inexplicable glitch that occurred during my playthrough of the game's finale. Just after chasing down Big Smile Lee's boat and grabbing onto it, there's this cutscene that's supposed to play where the two crash into this gas station in the middle of the water. The footage you're currently seeing is from after I reset my game so I could actually finish it. Now let's check out what happened on my first attempt. Yep, Wei T-posed so hard that Big Smile Lee crashed the boat. Now I'll admit, when I first saw this, I was laughing my ass off, but when I got a mission fail for it, reloaded my last checkpoint, and spawned in the water where I couldn't continue the mission, I honestly got a little pissed off. As I said, I ultimately had to close out the game and start it back up in order to restabilize it, after which it ran like a charm again. But it was still pretty damn annoying and anticlimactic to have to deal with this crap during the final mission of the game. There are other instances too where the game bugged out and prevented me from progressing, but for this to happen during the finale, it was just such a disappointment for me. There's one last major game-breaking bug I want to go over that I've seen being talked about online, but I luckily didn't experience this myself. One thing I didn't really talk about at all in this video is Sleeping Dogs' mission replay system, which is something that can come in handy if you need to earn just a little more XP to max out your cop or triad level after the end of the game. Long story short, according to Reddit, so take this with a few grains of Dorito dust, if you restart from checkpoint during a mission replay, the game will think that you're at that part of the story and you'll lose any progress attained after that particular mission. You can fix this if you have a manual save to reload from, but if you didn't have that foresight, well, you're apparently fucked. I honestly can't believe that a glitch like this could exist in a game as incredible as this one. But then again, I guess it and all the other glitches I've talked about line up pretty well with our standards for a definitive edition in the modern day. So congratulations Sleeping Dogs on blazing that trail. But as detrimental as some of these glitches are, and as annoying as some of those other flaws may be, just how much do they bring this game down overall? It doesn't matter how you carve it up. Whether you want to judge this game based on its emotional roller coaster of a story that's sure to make you cry, or its purely addictive gameplay that will supply your life with hours upon hours of fun, or maybe even its gorgeous setting and scenery that just takes your breath away, or any of the other 1,000,001 reasons to just love this game, the one thing you can say about Sleeping Dogs with 100% certainty is that everybody truly was kung fu fighting. Oh, and also that it's an amazing game that is severely underrated, warts and all. No, wait, hang on. Calling it underrated doesn't do this game any justice, because you could ask just about anybody who played it back in the day, and they'll tell you it was phenomenal. No, the only way I can properly describe this game, the most accurate way I think I can possibly put this, is that Sleeping Dogs is slept on. I'm not exaggerating when I say that this was legitimately one of the best games I think I've ever played in my entire life. But for all of the pain that our main character suffers through its story, I believe that the true tragedy of Wei Shen is that nobody remembers him. I mean, sure, we all remember him right now because you just sat through me talking about this game for the past like 40 minutes. But are you gonna remember him in 40 days? Or will Sleeping Dogs simply fall again to the back of our minds to reside with the countless other games that we've played and let fade? Sorry if it feels like I'm coming at you at all, because I promise I'm not trying to. I'm just saying that Sleeping Dogs is one of those unfortunate titles that deserves to be remembered for how great it was, and honestly still is, but is instead forgotten to time, and that's just a damn shame. But again, I'm not putting this blame on any of us, because the reality is that in the end, it was ultimately overshadowed by the gargantuan Grand Theft Auto series, much like all the other clones that stood beside it. The really sad part is that it didn't have to be this way. Sleeping Dogs was a high-selling game when it first came out, but Square Enix unfortunately deemed the title a failure and canceled both a sequel and a spin-off that were set to release in the following years. As somebody who thoroughly enjoyed playing through this game, this kind of fallout truly breaks my heart, since it just makes me wonder what it could have been had this franchise been given the opportunity to take off. Because even with all of its faults that I've talked about, this was one of those rare diamonds in the rough that were so close to being perfect, but alas, we sadly live in a reality where Sleeping Dogs was simply left to rot in the past. But you know what? Fuck this pessimistic tangent I went on, because even though I've completed this awesome game to 100%, all I've played so far is just the base game. That's right, even though the future the Sleeping Dogs franchise had was eradicated by Square Enix, United Front made sure to load up their one and only entry in the series with not one, but 2 DLC side stories titled Nightmare in North Point and Year of the Snake, neither of which I've ever seen any gameplay on, nor have I even begun to play, so luckily for me, I still have 2 completely fresh Sleeping Dogs expansions I've yet to experience. Originally, I was gonna play through them before this video came out so I could talk about them here, but I didn't realize this video was gonna be this long, and I'm trying to have it out before the end of April. So long story short, plans change, pal. But if you'd like to hear my thoughts on those DLCs in the future, tell me down below, and if there's enough interest, I'll be sure to revisit Sleeping Dogs sometime soon. Oh, and while you're down there, what's your opinion on Sleeping Dogs? Is it as good as I say it is, or do you think it deserved the fate it got? And what did you think of this video? I wanted to experiment getting just a little fancier with the edits in this one, and if I can find the right opportunities, I might continue doing shit like that in the future, so if you like the changes, tell me in the comments below. As a matter of fact, if you really liked this video, go a step further and leave a like on it really helps me out. Or if you didn't enjoy it, like it anyway before I send Wei Shen to burn your face on a hot stove. And of course, if you want to see more content regarding shit like Sleeping Dogs or Grand Theft Auto in the future, hit that subscribe button to stay notified of my uploads. Besides that, thank you everybody for watching, and thank you for helping me reach 4,000 subscribers. Just 2 years ago, I was at 400 something, and now we're here. And I know that's really just a vanity number nowadays, but it means a lot that this many of you have chosen to support me and help me achieve my dream. Seriously, you guys are fucking awesome. Anyway, that's all I've got to say. Thank you all again for watching, and until next time, this is your boy Doug the Dog 6, and I'm signing off. Take it easy, lads, and have a happy Saturday.